City Matters.
Welcome back here for our third episode with Assistant Chief of the New York City Fire Department, Michael Meyers, on the fog of war on humanity. We were just really kind of getting into 9/11 in a big, big way, with Mike's unbelievable experiences, some very, very hard moments. Are there times today where you'll be driving and you'll think about 9/11, or is there any reminders?
Well, every year we have the reminder, right? So, we were talking before about Long Island University and Post, and playing football there. At one point, we had about 7 of us from who played football at CW Post, who wound up being on the FDNY Bravest football team.
And will you guys play against the police?
We play against police, and we play against other fire and police departments from around the country. So it's a league. So it was just a lot of fun to be back with a lot of my teammates from college, one of who died on 9/11, who Post's field, still to this day, LIU's field is named after him, Derell Bronco Pearce, who was one of my roommates when I was at Post, who died on 9/11.
What was his first name?
Derell Bronco Pearce.
Your nephew Christian's named after him, right?
Yes, that's right. Yes, his middle name is named after him. Yeah, so he was a very close friend of my family. His parents were a lot older. So he used to come over on all the holidays, and hang out with us. We just had an incredible bond. Bagpipe. He was a drummer in the bagpipe band for the fire department, and we again, another young guy, played football in college together. Went on the fire department. We had a group of about 10 or 12 of us who would travel the country and the world, seeking good times when we were on vacation.
Sure. I mean, Derell, his memory lived on because I did the 9/11 memorials and the presentations for my school for a long time. And I had your nephew, who was a president of the varsity club for athletes, and he spoke about 9/11. He spoke about you and his father and grandfather and everything, and he spoke about Derell. And we had members of the 3256 Foundation, which was Michael Curtin. He was a Marine, and he was a New York City fireman who ended up dying on 9/11. It was actually his wife's birthday. And they were there, and they're like, who is this kid? I said, yeah, he's looking to go into one of the military academies, right? Pretty service-orientated family. And they're like, come the springtime, let us know, because they have a big foundation.
Sure.
And he was the first scholarship to be given through their foundation, through the school. And very loyal people. We had Owen McCaffrey that was here, that was Curtin's boss, and he always speaks about Curtin and the things he did on 9/11. But your nephew, though, left a huge imprint on them. And
he's hoping to be a Navy pilot.
Yeah,
I think that's because
he will be too.
Yeah, he's a senior at Kings Point.
Yeah,
playing on the lacrosse team there. My other nephew, his older brother Jack. Yeah. Just graduated officer training school
with the Army and everything.
With the Army,
right?
So again, he's part of the National Guard. So he'll do amazing things. It really is a family of
the service is going to continue
service, right?
Yeah.
It continues on from generation to generation, and again, protecting what we believe is the best country on the planet. Making those names live on, and honoring those who died. Running in tunnels to towers races, doing things like that, which I always think tunnels to towers, you talk about charities, one of the most amazing charities, what they've turned that into as a support system for the military, police, and fire is just unbelievable, right? Because that's the backbone of almost every community. Yeah. Those folks who protect this nation and protect our cities and our people who go out there and do amazing things.
Now, you mentioned tunnel to towers on 9/11. We're hitting the 25th year coming up, right? Is there any one thing that you like to do, on or about that date to recall 9/11? And you lost a lot of friends, right? A lot of people you knew.
Yeah, a tremendous amount of them. So one of the things that I do every year is there's a wall on the 10 house, on 10 engine and 10 truck, which is right across the street from the World Trade Center Memorial. There's a right there, when twilight comes, the band goes down there and plays an ode to the Wild Rover, and plays down there. And that's where they found my college roommate, Bronco, and good friend. He was the only band member to die on 9/11 there. And so they found him right in that corner. So they went down there that first year. They were done playing all the memorials, and they grouped together, and it's become almost like a tourist attraction now. A little bit too much so.
Sure.
But I'm sure next year it's always incredibly packed, and everyone goes down there and watches that. But, at the end of the day, what it's all about is making sure that we take all of these names and never forget.
Sure.
Monica that comes out of that. And again, like, you could see how people do forget, right? You look at, again, being a history buff, Pearl Harbor and World War II, the beginning of World War II.
It's just starting to become another date now.
Right.
It's scary.
And then, until you go somewhere like Pearl Harbor
and you see
and you walk around and you see having been at 9/11 and seeing that destruction and not knowing if your friends were dead or alive, or your family members were dead or alive, walking around Pearl Harbor, I could see that same thing. As I was walking around there, and very solemn. Again, same thing as some of the battlefields over in Europe. Even where myself, when I went over to Munich one time, going to Dachau and walking through the concentration camps and stuff like that over there.
Yeah, it really did happen.
Watching it and seeing, and you can almost feel to this day the energy when you're at those sites of what happened or what occurred there.
Sure.
And just how important it was to history. And again, like, anything in Europe or anything in the United States, always go to military battlefields and look at that, like going to Gettysburg and saying, what the heck, this small town.
53,000 Americans.
Right, how many people.
Dead and wounded, right?
Dead and wounded, and how they got people there to help treat them afterwards, either side, the Union and Confederate side. So a lot of lessons can be learned from all that. And again, like, we go back to 9/11, tying that all together again, and just trying to get down there and bring some order to the chaos that happened. And again, making sure that we have all those folks live on, and make sure that we became better as a department. As a department, we've changed drastically, since 9/11. We don't just do fires and emergencies anymore. Now we have to have hazmat. We have incident management teams that go around the country dealing with large-term, long-scale disasters, because we'd never had a fire that had burned for that length of time. Our longest fire before that was probably 2 or 3 days. Now, that fire went on for months and months and months.
Yeah, you could see the smoke from parts of Suffolk and Nassau County for a long, long time, right? And covering Lower Manhattan, and it was a tough reminder. They always call 9/11 one of the longest days in American history because it stayed with us. News coverage, the smoke and the debris, the rescue and the recovery. But it was a tough time, I still think it's a tough time for the tri-state area.
Oh, no doubt. Just the death and despair that we saw down there, the type of damage we saw to the bodies that we did recover, both from the plane and from folks in the building. In the 78 days I was down there till actually we found my friend Bronco. And after that, I kind of wrapped it up. I said, I've seen enough at this point, but I just wanted to bring him back home. We're buried over in Holyrood Cemetery over in Westbury. And, again, like we were able to bring finality to all that. But at that point, after about 78 days in, I had seen enough at that point. That
you heard a lot of bagpipes.
I needed to go back to the, so when you weren't digging at the site, you were going to 10, 12, 14 funerals a day. From one to the next, and even after a couple of months of that, bringing my daughter to a lot of that, because you wanted to go pay your respects.
Yeah,
and,
sure.
My at that time my ex-wife still had to work.
Yeah.
So I have my 1-year-old with me, and I'm going, how fair is this? That I'm at funerals all the time, and each person, when they would give the eulogies and speak about the person, it would tear at your heartstrings and just eat you alive inside.
Very powerful, right?
But again, you just try to take that and luckily, I have a great support system in my family, my friends, everyone, all my loved ones. Again, I always say 9/11, was the very worst of humanity, but it brought out the very best of humanity with picking us up and helping us pick up those pieces and able to take it. And I try to put a positive spin on that now. And, I'm lucky to be alive. I try to cherish every moment I get. because a lot of those folks didn't get those moments with their families that I still have. So, in some ways, you just you have to take that positive and realize that, there's a lot of life to live, and I've gotten to live it. And again, make those memories live on, pass on those stories to those folks who lost their loved ones those days.
Now, let me ask you, you mentioned the site where there's a memorial, right? There's the big bronze plaque up on the wall, I think it is.
Right.
Do you know that bar that's right over there?
O'Hara's?
O'Hara's.
Yeah.
That's an unbelievable place because you could see all the fire patches from all over the place that range from here, the volunteer units, guys that came down from Canada and California and Texas. It's amazing, that place, right? Do you ever go down there?
It's everywhere. Yeah, I've been in O'Hara's. Yeah. I might have had a drink or two down there, at different times. It's a great place, and again, they honor the history of that. That was a big location. Yeah. When people were digging at the site once they got off duty, sometimes with some of the things you saw or whatnot, I'm sure it's similar to the military. Yeah. Sometimes you just need a drink to rehumanize before you go home because of the stuff you saw, because it's hard to describe. I think, and that's the toughest part on your loved ones and support system. You don't want to go home and describe some of the things that you saw. And I know from speaking to a lot of folks in the military, some of the things that folks saw in Afghanistan, the Middle East, the stuff that they saw, again, tough to come home and describe that.
Do you have any like PTSD or any memories or, you're taking remains out, you're seeing unbelievable structure and damage. Right, you're a young guy, right? You talked about the good-looking women, the bars, the activity down there, right? It's a beautiful place that was just about destroyed, right? What memories do you have from that?
Yeah, I think almost probably every member of the police, fire department, or construction crews that helped us. Without them, we wouldn't be able to do anything. Our EMS folks on the fire side. I think everyone probably has a certain level of PTSD. Sure. Just similar.
How can't you?
Right. The things that you saw, the things that you did. And again, continuing to deal with that to this day with some of these folks who are my great friends, who you think you're gonna tell stories with for the rest of your life, who are now dying of World Trade Center cancer. Like my friend Tony Mistrelli just died. A guy who's a year and a half ago. I'm with him in Ireland. 4 months ago, we're burying him. He's goes from 280 pounds to 160 pounds. And you're in hospice with him, and it shouldn't happen in your 50s, but it's happening.
He should be able to retire. He should be able to be home, see his friends, family, right, and all those different things that he's earned.
Right, exactly. All like working all that time, doing all he's done, giving all that service to the city of New York, and unfortunately, all of his loved ones, and have to live without him now.
Yeah, I've done a couple of 9/11 memorials, right, and I came across John Feel from the Feel Good Foundation, who did a lot of legislation in terms of the 9/11 sickness, and Sheriff Errol Toulon, the Suffolk County Sheriff. They did the 9/11 Responders Park in Lake Ronkonkoma. It's like one of the most unique 9/11 sites in the country because it's putting people up there who have died since 9/11, like with the 9/11 illness and so on. And you probably have some friends that are up there. They keep track of all that, and they end up engraving their names, and it's like an unbelievable park. It's right across from Lake Ronkonkoma on Roseville, I think it is, and Town Line Road over there.
Yeah, I've been there. I've been down there because they have the Murphy Run and all that stuff down there every year. The Michael Murphy Run.
I've run in that, and it's like you run around the lake, and then you run under the flag, under where he was a lifeguard, and he had fire patches on him when he went into combat because his friends were firemen, and they actually have this huge display of Michael Murphy, the SEALs and stuff like that in that firehouse.
You go into almost any firehouse in the city, they'll have some military that visited with them. A lot of patches were put on a lot of the bombs, a lot of flags that hung over some of the camps and outposts all around Afghanistan and the Middle East. So again, like there's a very close bond between the military and them. Again, we constantly work with and train with the military. At the fire academy, we always have special forces and whatnot that come in and work with us, and also train at our facilities, sometimes doing some things that most folks aren't allowed to see.
Now, you do a lot of training, and 9/11 changed the fire department. You try to get some of the senior firefighters, regardless of their rank, but if they've had time down in Lower Manhattan at some point, do you try to get them to talk to the younger guys at all, or stuff like that? Can that happen?
Oh yeah, well, there's always those lessons being passed on. Like that's the history and tradition of the New York City Fire Department. Is again, the senior members are always passing that on, and that's what's so important. Because even if guys don't get promoted, they stay in a firehouse for a long period of time. What that does is it allows them to really gain a knowledge and an expertise in those type of buildings. So in that area would be high-rise firefighting, right? So again, like in Midtown, Times Square, where I worked for a long time, and also down there, that's the first. Was that a busy area? First division. Times Square is one of the busiest areas in the city.
Was that a wild area? You saw some wild things over there? Or?
You definitely see some different type of things there, and again, it's you just never know. You could do 30, 40 runs a tour some days, just because of how busy it is. On a typical day in Times Square before COVID, I'm sure it's still similar now. Numbers, I don't know the numbers now, but 750,000 people a day would pass through that Times Square area every day on foot. So it's a lot of folks coming in, and spending some time down there.
My buddy Frankie, the firefighter and the Yankee, he was down in the Village for a little while, and he goes, "You saw something different every day. Every day you saw something different." And he goes, "It was like a good place to be. It was busy, but you saw different things, and it kept your mind. You didn't stay stagnant,
No, there's no 2 days, like we talked about it earlier in the first episode. No 2 days are the same.
Sure.
And that's what makes it exciting, right? That's what takes a kid from the football field and going on and earning a productive living, and, from the football fields of Holy Trinity or CW Post.
Yeah.
And you go there and you have that excitement and that exhilaration. Like I said, with being a tactical athlete, it keeps you on your game, keeps you busy, keeps you primed, because again, you never know what you're going to face. Just the other night in Brooklyn, I was the incident commander at an incident where we had 2 firefighters buried, in a private dwelling, and we had to get them in there. You had to get them out. The companies that, again, learning from past mistakes, we have rapid response teams that go in there and special operations teams that got them out. Both of them survived with just bumps and bruises because of the quick work and the great work of all the members around them.
Now, after 9/11, that's 25 years ago. I mean, you've already been in at least 10 years up until that point. Where do you go after that? What are some of the positions or jobs that you have after that?
Yeah, so after that, I was a captain in Midtown in Times Square, Ladder 4, which covered the Times Square area.
So do you run that house then?
So at that point, you run that company, that company. And then I became a battalion chief in that area as well, in the 9th Battalion. So I stayed in that Times Square area for about 16 years. Figure I did roughly about 15,000 calls for help over there during the course of that. So
a battalion chief, what's your over job? I mean, are you in a house or you're in an area? Or?
Yeah, you're in a house and you control 3 or 4 firehouses or underneath your command.
Huge responsibility.
Huge responsibility. So again, every level that you go up, you're responsible for more and more people. And when you're on a fire scene, again, when you're dealing with life and death, again, it's similar to the military.
Yeah.
The more people you're in command of, one of the luckiest things we have on the New York City Fire Department is a workforce that wants to put themselves in harm's way, and they want to do work and they want to go to work. They're incredibly aggressive and they want to help the people in New York City. So sometimes you have to protect them from themselves, and try to hold them back a little bit. Again, just because, we have such a gung-ho workforce, which is, our biggest attribute.
Did you, how far were the houses from each other?
It all depends. Originally when the fire department first started, they had horses.
Yeah.
So they used to build the firehouses based on how far the horses could run.
Right.
That way they wouldn't, before they break down. So now a lot of those structures are in place. And obviously in New York City, very tough to get property these days.
Yeah.
So, some of the response areas are bigger. And some of the less occupied areas, the companies are more spread out. But Now in this day and age, there's no such thing as an unoccupied area in New York City. People are constantly building and building up. Now we have these mega high rises, and the skyline has changed drastically since when I first came on in 1991.
You being a history guy, and you go into some of the firehouses, they're not all new, right? Some of them are pretty old. There's got to be some history within those fire departments that were not changed, right? I mean, is there anything that you see?
Oh, it's really cool to go back and look in some of the journals from those eras, or some of the buildings haven't changed substantially. You
got cobblestone still out front, right?
Cobblestone still out front. You have the circular staircases, and that was so the horses wouldn't go upstairs. The straight run stairs, they would go upstairs. Where in the circular staircases, they wouldn't go up. The circular staircases. So just to think some of the folks that have worked there and have been there, again, like, they always talk about with like the Yankees.
Sure.
The ghosts that are there before us. And again, like that same type of thing.
You had a lot of teammates that were there years before you, right?
Yeah, the greatness that was there before us, and able to take that greatness and try to build on it and try to make it better. That's every one of our jobs on the New York City Fire Department.
I have a question here. I don't know if you've ever really been asked it before, but you see the fire department a lot in like, shows and series and movies and stuff like that. What do they get right, but what do they get wrong?
I don't think they really get any of it right.
Yeah.
To be honest with you.
Was Backdraft like a little off? Was that a little like,
It was off, but it was an incredible public relations movie.
It was a big boost
for us. Right? So I'm similar. It's like the Top Gun. If you're a Navy pilot, I'm sure they could pick that apart.
So Kurt Russell wasn't completely bad in that then, right?
No, I think they did a great job. And again, like, even Dennis Leary and his foundation, that was a little Rescue Me. It was a little corny. But again, a great public relations to the New York City Fire Department and
what you guys go through,
what we go through, similar to what they did in Backdraft or Ladder 41 with John Travolta and Joaquin Phoenix. So none of it's very real because when we're in a fire, everything's blacked out and there's smoke everywhere. And once you put water on it, then there's even more blacked out.
Sure.
So that's one thing they can't depict or show on film. And they also show people standing up when you're walking in there. And again, with the high heat in some of those fires that they'd be in, you'd be on the ground or you'd be burnt to death in some of the scenarios. But again, it's just great public relations for us. And one of the funniest things is, again, working in Times Square, you get all kinds of people that stop by there. How real is that? Is that real? And you're like, no, it's not really real. That's not the way we do things. But even if I watch any of the other shows that are on now,
Donald Sutherland's character in Backdraft, right?
Yeah, that's never. I've never seen anything like that. That's not really. Yeah, that was probably the most fake part of all that. Was his character. I've never seen anyone talking like that or whispering.
Little Hollywood, right?
Yeah, very Hollywood. But that's okay. They're telling a story. And again, at the end of the day, the firefighters are the heroes. And they're bringing, again, without those shows, without those movies in the military, right, it'd be hard for us to pass on what we do or explain what we do to folks outside of the firehouse or fire station.
So now, today, 34 years in the service, probably feels like a blink of an eye, right? In some cases.
Oh, yeah.
You're a long ways off from Holy Trinity and CW Post and playing football, right? You have major responsibilities, right? What does your daily job look like?
Yeah, so my daily job is, again, I'm the chief of training for fire and EMS. So I have 17,500 people that I have to make sure are trained and ready to respond to almost every emergency.
It's a massive job.
A massive job, that all their certifications are up to date. That we're able, that every level, we're trained folks for probationary firefighters, we're training lieutenants, we're training captains, we're training chiefs. We're doing the same thing with EMTs, paramedics, and the officers on the EMS ranks, making sure that everybody's ready to go at a moment's notice and ready to take on anything that they have to deal with. So it's a lot of headaches, but there's a lot of reward to it
too, right?
Right, when you see your folks go out there and have success every day, as we look at the papers and when they respond to those emergencies and just do incredible work. So
now your brother from Rocky Point, he's high up too, right? He's
a deputy chief, yes.
So you guys are senior figures, right? Your family really is like one of those families that they're tied to the department over decades, right?
Oh, absolutely, 100%. So figure the Meyers go back all the way to 1968 when my father came on the job to now, right? So that's a long run in a 160-year department, right?
Yeah.
And if you add all of our service together, right? So my father did 40 years. So you have my 35.
Yeah.
That puts us at 75. And my brother's had
Well over 100.
30.
Yeah.
So it's well over 100 years of experience of helping the people in the city of New York, just on the fire side with my brother. And again, my other brother was a New York City police officer, and then he switched over to the Nassau County PD.
So, all right, we're done. We appreciate you coming in. I'd like to have you come back. If you could think of any situations like where we could break it down in terms of any incidents, any fires or anything like that, I definitely love to have you come back, Mike. This was an unbelievable experience. We really learned a lot about the foundations of the fire department, 9/11, and just the different jobs and everything, and the difficulties of the job. Thank you very much for your service,
You're
Mike.
welcome.
Appreciate it. Michael Meyers here on The Fog of War and Humanity, here on HMTV. We look forward to seeing you next time around.